Hi, welcome to this episode of Founder's Journey. Today, I have Matthew Black on the podcast today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff.
So, audience, before we started recording, I was like, you know what? Let me pull up Matthew's LinkedIn so this way that as a storyteller, I can go through his history of his work experience and journeys. And I couldn't find him. And then finally, it was Matthew A. Black. And that's how I found him on LinkedIn. And if you want to follow along the story, you should look up Matthew A. Black from Mav AI. But he would tell you why there's an A in the middle.
Yeah. So, hey, look, I don't think I've ever shared this publicly. It is my secret, but now everyone can have it. So, I get a lot of automated messages, a lot of bots, a lot of people using automated LinkedIn outreach tools. I put the A in my first name so I can tell who's sending me an automated text. If I get a message that says, "Hey, Matthew A," oh, now I know you're using an automated tool to reach out to me. So when I get something that says, "Hey, Matt," or "Hey, Matthew," I actually know it was a human that wrote it. So for me, it's a filtering mechanism, but it's been extraordinarily helpful. And I've actually noticed a few other people on LinkedIn doing it too.
That's pretty smart. And now I wonder if they're doing it for the same reason or they just want to separate themselves from like other people with some names.
They could, but I definitely am using it for the utility purpose.
You know, what's crazy is I have a little LinkedIn secret as well. And I added every single Jeff Shee I can find on LinkedIn. I friended them so this way that you know how like sometimes when you want to tag people on LinkedIn,
Yep.
somehow LinkedIn tagged a random person with the same name. So I was wondering if sometimes if people want to tag me and they tag another Jeff Shee from I don't know Chicago or LA,
Yep.
right, or like Beijing, and like, but it was intended to be me,
For
right?
you, yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I want to see that on show up on my news feed. So that's the only reason why I added everybody. I was like, you know what? Sometimes if I was supposed to get tagged, I wasn't tagged. I want to see myself and my brother from another mother get tagged. So
Yeah. I could just imagine the dialogue between you two. Hey, I think that one's for me. Oh, this one might have been for you. Just sending links back and forth.
and I just wonder what went through their head. Like, why is this Jeff Shee adding me?
I mean, I feel like if they have the name Jeff Shee, they know what's going on, right?
Yeah. So Matthew, tell us about your company and everybody is in the AI trenches these days. Is
Seems like
like
it.
race to the top, right? Is like who crack it, who build the next best tool that have the best utility and the best integrations. AI is good as your structured data that flow through it, right? Take us through your founding stories, like what make you start being in the tech world, and then what made
Yeah.
you start feeling like, you know what, I can build the AI tools that everybody needs.
Yeah. So maybe I'll start a little bit sharing about me personally, my background, and then we can jump into Mav and kind of who we are in the market and how we got here. But I'm a tech guy through and through. When I was 12 years old, my mom came home with a computer, and Jeff, I would literally sit there and I would take the computer apart, put it back together, take it apart, put it back together. Even before I knew this thing could turn on, I just was obsessed with hardware and computers. And from a very early on, from a very early age, I just, was really into computers. A few years later, I learned how to code, Visual Basic, PHP, making a blog, all the fun first things you do. Um, a couple years later, I actually ended up getting poached out of college, ended up working for an agency building some of the first social networking sites for MTV. So if you remember like Road Rules, Real World, Jackass World, Rude Paul's Rude Awakening, my
You
Super Team
you are dating
16.
yourself, and I'm that definitely
I
dating
know, I
myself.
know it's making me sound so old, but hopefully someone remembers these shows. But at that time, if you wanted to be on those shows, you have to create an account on these websites, create a profile, and that's how they would do the casting. So it was me and this other guy making these websites as fast as we could, And I was like 17 at the time. It was crazy, but I just fell in love with building products, creating software. Um, so that was my first introduction to programming. After there, I went to DoubleClick, worked on a lot of technology for the cookie. DoubleClick was then bought by Google for 2 point some $billion. So that was a wild ride, super early on in my career. After that, I said, hey, working for someone's cool, but I'm gonna give myself a shot. 2009, I was the CTO and co-founder of a company called Contextual, which was basically a Slack alternative. So this was before Slack, and we were kind of going toe to toe against Yammer, doing enterprise chat. Built some really, really awesome tech. First introduction into the VC world. Ended up selling it to a company called Axiba. Learned a ton through that ride. After that, did another startup, an event space startup. Was a colossal shit show. Was probably one of my biggest failures ever. But put some character on me and the team at the time. So everything and so many different failures to get to something that actually works. And then I took a couple years off after the events startup, and actually started a digital agency in New York, where we were building websites and apps for our customers. There was a one customer who reached out to us. This was 2017 at the time. And they said, hey, Facebook contacted us and they said, we're about to release this chatbot framework on Messenger. This was like 2017. So this is way before the AI craze. And they said, hey, I want you to go look at it, go meet with Facebook, tell us what you think. Me and my CTO at the time, we met with Facebook. We flew out to their headquarters in Silicon Valley. And I remember after that meeting looking at him and saying, dude, I think this is going to be a big deal. I don't know how big of a deal this is going to be, but I think this is going to be a big deal. And we just agreed that we thought this was going to be the future of how people were going to interact with brands and companies. So we did that project, but we also started building a ton of open source frameworks. So we built a framework called Stealth in 2017. It's still MIT open source on GitHub. It's used by thousands of developers all over the world right now. But we just felt like we needed to just build tech for the community. We didn't know what the business model would be. We didn't know how people were going to use it. We just knew that this form of communication was going to be a big thing. Fast forward through 2017, 2018, we ended up working with some of the biggest Fortune 100 brands, built as a consultant to help them figure out how they could use these chatbots for their business. And there was one thing that just kept on sticking out to us, and it kept on getting repeated over and over and over. And that was for the digital servicing agencies or digital servicing companies, mortgage, insurance, lending, that have an influx of inbound leads that need to outreach 24/7, 365, qualify, and then bring those leads back to the licensed agent, for them to do the 11th hour licensed work. And that use case started coming up a lot around 2019, that I said, you know what? Shut the agency down. Let's productize this. And that's what Mav is today, is the productized version of all that consulting work, all that product work that we did back in 2016 and 17. And as of late, we've really found a pocket in the PNC insurance space. All of our growth from a retail perspective is the insurance space. Maybe that's just the market dynamics with the carriers, the squeezing margins from commissions. Maybe it's just not so economically viable for humans to work large amounts of insurance leads. A lot of things kind of fell into our plate where we are pretty much verticalized specifically for insurance today.
So I got questions,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you opening up. So you guys were born in 2017, 2018?
Yeah, actually 2016, if you want to get technical about it. But yeah, this company has pretty much started as an R&D consulting company, and then we shut down the consultancy arm to focus on the product that basically was born out of the agency.
So how much has the launch of ChatGPT changed your world?
Yeah, so it's changed a lot of other people's world a lot more than ours, but it has changed ours. So when we first started building our tech, there was no such thing as a large language model. There was no such thing as it was very rudimentary machine learning at best, natural language processing, all the old kind of uh conversational AI tech. Today, we leverage on LLMs a lot. So we actually have another piece of open source framework called Spectre, which is pairing to our conversational fulfillment framework. And that allows developers to integrate with large language models, any of them. So whether it's OpenAI, Llama, which is Facebook's, Cohere, Claude, we allow you to pick and choose any of those foundation models, and we're really, really big into self-hosting those, right? Like we have a lot of really important data by our customers. We don't want to just throw that on the cloud and have OpenAI go nuts on it. So I'm pretty proud of some of the hardware initiatives we're focused on keeping those things self-hosted, keeping those things private, but also training those things on all the nuances, what it takes to bind an insurance policy, all the vertical stuff that, isn't on these big public models.
What percentage, you don't have to answer this, I'm curious. What percentage of Mav customers are enterprise like insurance carriers and versus your boutique call centers, right? So think about like leads company or like, your mom and pop call center models. And then what
Mhm.
percentage of your traditional brokers and agents? Thank you for watching this video. Now a quick message from our sponsor, Mav.
Thanks, Jeff. I want to let you all in on a secret that top producing agencies don't want you to know about. If you're in PNC insurance, you know firsthand how much you're getting squeezed by your call center. It's becoming less predictable and less economically profitable to scale. But here's the thing. The top producing agencies making over $100 million are not running their leads through a human-based call center. They're running them through an AI expert like Mav to qualify, quote, and hand deliver the highest intent qualified leads to your agents. Mav takes care of the back and forth, having unlimited 24/7 conversations with your leads that are personal and relevant so you can scale to the moon. Ready to ditch your call center and 10x your agency? We're giving the listeners of InsureTech's $15,000 worth of credit to try Mav. Head to hiremav.com/insuretex to claim this offer.
Thank you for all your support to our channel. Here is a quick word from our sponsor. Please click on the link below in the comment section to sign up for a demo with Track AI.
What if your insurance sales conversations could work harder for you? Meet Track, your AI-powered conversation intelligence partner. Track automatically captures and analyzes every customer interaction, providing instant call summaries, risk analysis, and AI-driven coaching insights. Say goodbye to manual note-taking and hello to more selling time. Track handles the admin work while you handle the revenue. Fully integrated with your favorite platforms. Plus, get custom AI analysis tailored to your unique business needs. Transform your sales team's performance with Track. Visit track.ai today.
Click the link in the description below to schedule a demo with Track today.
Yeah, so the majority, I would say, are mid-sized to larger independent PNC agencies, right? So the agencies that are, either driving growth through tons of third-party lead acquisition on EverQuote or, LendingTree or what have you, but they have an internal department that is exclusively dedicated to working the leads, whether they're buying them first party or third party, whatever have you, but they're feeling the hurt, right? They're hitting that glass ceiling. And, the growth that traditionally went through the call center, it's just becoming a lot more tough. The handle costs of a lead is upwards of 40, $45, which when you back that math out in today's world, it's hard to stay competitive. And, a lot of these guys have very ambitious growth goals, right? Very. And when they see that, hey, AI can do it for an eighth of the cost and it's infinitely scalable, and I don't have the headaches of, attrition and turnover and all the stuff that a call center has, that's where things start clicking. And that's kind of our pocket that we're hyper focused on.
So when you have these AI texting, and do you guys do calls as well?
Yeah, so we leverage SMS as much as humanly possible, just simply because it's the highest performing channel. I know
Right.
everyone is demoing a lot of really cool voice tech, and not to diminish that at all, but the fact still is that text still is the highest performing channel by far. So we're spending almost all of our initial outreach on SMS first, and then we use voice to patch in live transfers. We use voice to do outreach on consumers that express positive intent on the SMS, are unable to find a time to talk. We'll layer in voice that way, but always SMS first.
What do you think the conversion rate is on live leads through SMS? On the
That's a,
PNC, in the PNC world.
it's going to depend a lot on things like lead source, the agency themselves, the product offering, standard, non-standard. There's so many different variables to this, right? What I will say though is, and this is pretty consistent across the board, is that the engagement you'll get by doing outreach to a consumer over SMS is going to be quicker than any other outreach you'll do. And we have this metric inside the company. It's called positive intent, PI for short, and it's like kind of our North Star leading indicator metric. The reason we track that is because 95% of folks read their text messages within 5 minutes. It's because it's right next to your wife or your significant other. It's alive and breathing, right? So it's an extraordinarily important real estate on the phone. So people do look at it. You need to make it so incredibly easy for them to respond and give you an indicator that I am interested in that quote, but I don't got time right now, right? I am interested in getting that quote, but hit me up at 6 p.m. when I get off of work. Contact me on Saturday. Make it easy for me. And a lot of folks will respond to those types of engagements, and that's positive intent. Great. This consumer has now done, step one of the qualification, right? And that's where we spend a lot of our time for the folks that express positive intent. There's all sorts of interesting things that we can give them to put that quoting process, on their plate, on their timeline. And if we can just deliver a really, really good experience on the timeline and the expectations of the consumer, I think after they get that quote and we connect them to a licensed agent, the close rate of those folks is way higher than a traditional call center rep cold calling a lead off of EverQuote.
Very interesting. Assuming you guys work with every lead vendor too?
Yeah. We I think at this point, it's probably pretty safe to say we have every lead vendor going through the platform across multiple customers. Obviously assuming that everything is written consent, everything is from a compliance perspective, good to go. We've definitely worked to every lead vendor.
What about all the CRM companies as well?
Yeah, so our integrations are, we're a tech company, so we love tech. We have a whole series of one-click integrations. We have an official Zapier app. We have an open API. If a customer comes through and they're using some CRM that we don't integrate with, we'll actually eat the cost, build the integration for that CRM because it just makes our platform that much better. So we love to integrate as deep as we can with our consumers' CRMs because the benefit of AI is not just one way, right? You don't want to just send your leads to an AI black box, and hopefully it will return the lead back to me. You want to be updated real time of what's happening. So a lot of our CRM integrations, you'll see by logging in real time under that contact or that lead what Mav's doing as of real time right now. And that's just another layer of visibility for, the stakeholders to say, okay, great, Mav's on it, Mav's got it. I shouldn't call this lead. I shouldn't step on the toes. Let Mav do what Mav's good at.
I'm just curious, how often, man, I have a lot of questions. And then like it's all going through my head.
Hopefully, I
So
got some good answers for you.
have you guys tracked this? I don't know if you are able to track this. Like when you get an auto insurance lead from a customer and you're trying to engage them on interest, hey, are you ready to talk to a live agent right now? Do you guys track like the bundle rate of the potential? Like, are you also interested in homes? And then is that part of your weapon, your tool belt for your AI systems?
Yeah, yeah. So totally. Well, the way we look at this is, again, we're hyper focused on augmenting the agent through the entire life cycle, not just top of funnel, initial outreach qualification, transfer them in, we're done. We have what is called playbooks that, in an ideal world, map to every life cycle stage of a consumer. So we have playbooks that are for, quoted, not sold, renewal, carrier notes, expiration, whatever it may be. And there also is a lot of different cross-sell opportunities that some folks have chose to do. And usually where that happens is, hey, we have a PNC customer coming through, or we have an existing PNC customer. Let's offer them additional lines in our book at somewhere in that funnel, right? And as long as Mav knows where that consumer is in terms of a life cycle stage to you, there can be a pairing playbook that we can do outreach on. So it's not just the initial top of funnel outreach, it can be through those life cycles or those cross selling opportunities that are maybe a little mid or bottom funnel for folks.
I feel like so many insurance agents, they're not maximizing their bundle, right? Like insurance agent book, quality of the book is penetration, right?
Yep.
One line, two line, three lines, four lines, etc. The more lines you have in the household, the stickier the business. If we have an AI that sit on top of all of our AMS, agency management system that look at all of our portfolios, figure out this is the monoline we need to go after. If you actually have a scraping tool that see it and that can reach out to it, that is in tune with the timeline, is sync with the system on the timeline. Oh, this
Mhm.
is auto policy. We're missing renter. We're missing homes, and then just automatic outreach. I'm not sure. Are you guys there yet in terms of development?
So, in terms of market and programmatic triggers that trigger specific outreaches, absolutely, right? Like we have, and this is business logic to the agency. So it really depends on how sophisticated the agency is with that business logic of saying, hey, based off of this book of business, these are the consumers that have not bundled with home, and we think we could have an attractive line for them, right? That's the part that still is on the agency's plate to a certain degree, but that decision engine that exposes that segment of customers to us can get triggered back to Mav and can run a playbook that is specifically designed to talk about, home insurance in addition to your auto, right? Or the discount that you may save by bundling, right? We're doing some really cool stuff on the mortgage space in a very similar way. I cannot talk about that too publicly yet, but we are doing some very smart market trigger based stuff. And I think, as the PNC and the agency side of things catch up, that those will expose the ability to do things like you're talking a little bit easier.
You guys are almost could be a lead generator.
We could. There's a lot of good lead generators out there, though.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking out loud, right? Let's just say hypothetically, you have a
Mhm.
relationship with a big call center style type of life insurance shop that have ever carrier lineup, right? And you could pair them up with a PNC shop, a big PNC shop who don't prioritize writing life insurance in-house. You discover the opportunities cross between them two, and you guys get like rev share in between.
Yeah, so we do that all the time.
Yeah,
Whenever, it is not uncommon. And for the record, we don't care to monetize any of that. We actually just want to make our customers successful. And it helps us too, right? Like, if we can introduce you to a aggregator or a buyer who, fits the product and that volume is going through Mav, we're happy. We're totally happy. But a lot of times what will happen is we'll get customers, they're hitting the ceiling, they're working 5,000 leads a month, they implement Mav correctly, and all of a sudden the capacity is just blowing through the roof. And now they can handle 15,000, 20,000, 30,000. Oh, wow, where are we going to get these leads? How well, I'd recommend you go talk to, this person, this person, this person. We've worked their data through our system. They perform at a certain way. So we're always making those types of introductions to help the growth of our customers. There's just so many great providers out there. And a lot of customers have, years long relationships with their aggregators too. So we're really there to just amplify and make that a little bit better.
thinking out
I think
loud,
great. How's
like
it
in
going
my
though?
head. Yeah, I forget that I am the podcaster telling your story here, and versus like I'm putting my other hat on and like back in working the shop days.
That's what makes you a good podcaster though, right? Like, you got that
Yeah.
domain expertise, you know that pain, right? And that's why I think, even going a step higher, what I think the special thing in the AI space is going to be, particularly over the next couple years, is folks going vertical, right? Like, there's all these guys playing the billion-dollar punch-out game at the horizontal level right now, right? You have the models going after each other, OpenAI, XAI, Claude, all those folks just throwing billions of dollars at the foundations model. We don't want to play that game. We can't play that game. That's not our game, right?
Yeah.
So you let those guys do that, and you find a niche where you can go extraordinarily deep in, and you can provide a 10x solution using some of this tech, and you bring it to market. And I think folks would be very, very surprised how big of an impact you can make, by going vertical and finding a nice pocket. So that's what we're hyper focused on. We consider ourselves a very deep vertical company at this point. And AI is going to continue to be a big, big buzzword, a lot of noise around it. And our hope is that our customers can trust us to help them navigate a lot of that noise and to a certain degree, a little nonsense right now.
We have mutual people that we know together, and I do a lot of consulting work on the insurance PNC space.
Mhm.
I actually had a conversation with him before our podcast last night, and I was like, you've been in this game for a while, and you use Actify before, contact your mass level of leads, from age leads to active leads to, follow-ups. What do you think the experience difference is using Actify and using Mav AI? And he was like, Mav blow them away. That was his exact words.
I'm starting to hear that a little bit more these days, which is warms my heart. I
Yeah, I
absolutely
just want to
love.
share that with you because, like, I want to tell you this on the podcast, and I was like, wow. And now I'd like to ask you, what do you think is your secret sauce?
Oh man, I don't think I can point to one particular thing. Here's what I will say: we do have a very different angle at things. The first different angle that we had to all of our competitors is we thought that this was first a design problem and not a tech problem. So our conversation design, the actual conversational script that we give our consumers, and they help co-author it to a certain degree, but we have a conversation designer. We have someone that is trained on linguistics and actually can communicate clearly over SMS, and that is such an underrated thing right now. Everyone thinks that this is a tech problem and we should throw tech. And what ends up happening is you look at some of these playbooks, these conversational playbooks, and you can tell it's written by a developer, and has just a lot of confusing things to it. So from a consumer's perspective, it's not gonna perform as well. It's gonna confuse the consumer. It's not gonna feel as good, right? So the first thing that we really focused on when we started this company is try to create an experience that is enjoyable, right, to the actual consumer. So we really focus on the experience, and then the second thing we've been hyper focused on too is um, understanding the nuances of the space. There's a lot of other folks that service our customers, but don't care to really understand the nuances of what makes them special. Why Florida is different than Texas? Why standard is different than non-standard? Why this lead provider? You really have to mention this over this because you have to understand how they're being acquired. You have to understand the funnel, the full funnel that the consumer is going through. So understanding that it's a design problem, but then also just really understanding the full life cycle of that lead and making sure that Mav just ultimately feels like an extension of the journey that they're on to get an insurance quote. So the cohesiveness of it is also very important to us. We also do a bunch of other cool stuff too that you know I could talk on for hours, but I think those are two of the probably main things I would consider differentiation for us.
I'm looking at your LinkedIn, your company's LinkedIn, and I see a buddy of mine on here as your board of advisor,
Greg?
Greg Spano.
Greg is a fun guy.
Yeah. Tell us about that. I mean, how'd you pick your board? What made you decide, what, hey, I need Greg on my board?
Yeah. So Greg's on our advisory board, and we have a board of industry titans, and it's actually a relatively new thing. Greg's the first one on that. And the idea here is that when Greg joined, he actually was a part of EverQuote. He has since moved on to Shape, which is an awesome CRM. I can't say enough great things about Shape.
Shout out to
Um,
Shape.
yeah, shout out to Shape for sure. At the time, Greg was, I mean, he was the head of insurance relate or agent relations for EverQuote. So he knew all the folks that were suffering from the problem that we solved. And he was just very, very good at saying, look, I have a pocket of guys that would love to buy more leads from EverQuote, but they can't because they're hitting that ceiling inside their company with their call center, or their handle cost is just continuing to rise and rise because I mean, who really wants to work at a call center now? The attrition, a $30,000 employee actually costs 75 if you account for how high that turn is. So he was really good at identifying that early pocket for us and being an advocate for not just the folks at EverQuote, but also for us as a company to understand, hey, where are these guys? How can I access them? How can we get in front of them? How do we start speaking their language? Greg was instrumental in that, and it continues to be amazing. He's a huge fan of Mav. We personally all get along well together. So that was kind of the general idea there. And we're about to bring on a couple of new folks too in the coming new year here that will sit on that board, but really just to serve as kind of a North Star for the company to make sure that we're never getting too far away from the customer.
So you mentioned more board members, the North Star, the focus. Where's the ceiling? Where's the next phase, right? Every company development is by phases, right? Phase A,
Mhm.
you achieve X. On tech side, you achieve Y on the capital revenue side. Like,
Yeah.
what's 2025 goal?
Yeah, maybe we should talk 2026, 2027. No, look, we're We're just getting started. I personally, as the founder of this company, have never had more energy ever. We had a record-breaking Q1 on a record-breaking year. It's exceeded kind of personally every goal I had, which probably means my goals weren't set high enough, to be honest. But we're just getting started. PNC Insurance is our beach. Without getting into too much detail, we've just scratched the surface of that segment. There's so much more for us to do in PNC, and I think that gets us pretty far. But in terms of who we service and how we service them, there are adjacent markets, and we will be entering those markets relatively soon in a much more complete solution way. It's I think for AI to really be impactful for a lot of the mid market and lower market or segments, you do need to provide almost an all-in-one encompassing solution. You can't really piecemeal yourself as these folks, their tools and their processes are so fragmented. They don't talk to each other. This piece of tech does not talk to this piece of tech, does not talk to this piece of tech. And just like you articulated in the beginning of the podcast, for AI to work, the data doesn't necessarily need to be structured per se, but you got to have access to all of it. And all of it needs to talk to all of your systems. So we're really focused on expanding out the product to be a little bit more comprehensive and a little bit easier to get that value quicker for some of the folks that maybe a little less sophisticated with the way that they acquire customers or the way they service those customers. And we think if we can go, vertical in these digital servicing industries, there's something very, very special there. And in terms of a TAM, you can say it's a nice shiny unicorn if you want to put a name on it.
AI is going to cut into the BPO industry like crazy. If you ever get bored, just Google the size of BPO industry in India, in Mexico, and in Philippines, and you can just ask ChatGPT the amount of people, the GDP revenue it represents for them,
Yep.
and then you're just like, wow, that's all the money that went out of the US.
Yeah, and it's already happening right now, Jeff. I mean, you have this dialogue of, will AI replace my job, right? It's the stuff you see all over LinkedIn, and to a certain degree, yes, it will replace a certain segment of jobs. I think there's more truth that folks will be replaced by humans that are using AI over AI itself. But there are industries like the BPO industry that, from a economics perspective and a convenience perspective, you would be silly to continue to do something like that when AI is just that much more accessible, that much cheaper, and honestly, at this point, pretty much better. We go toe to toe a lot of times with BPO shops and actually outperform them. So when you win across all three of those buckets, it does make a very, very hard case for you to continue to do that.
Are you a developer in the US?
So some are in Europe, and we're actually in the process of sponsoring them to make them American citizens right now. We're actually co-locating everyone in office because culturally speaking, we just work a lot better when we're all face to face. And the latency of remote work, I think there's a time and a place for it. And I think, over COVID, we all did it to a certain degree, but it's game time now. I think the stakes are extraordinarily high. We as a company are really pushing the needle on what we're doing. So it's all hands on deck for us now.
It's good to hear. H-1B visa?
Oh, one extraordinary.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep. Not the easiest one to get, but we're I think we got the case that we're providing some substantial value, not just to our consumers, but our open source frameworks. Those are used by a lot of US based companies. a lot of US based developers. So we try to always leave the world a little bit better than we found it, and that's kind of our way of doing it.
So on your LinkedIn says you guys are located in Vegas.
Yeah, I am. Yep,
Zero state income tax,
that's right.
right?
Yeah.
Nevada.
It's one of those
What
lucky
made you choose
states.
Vegas?
Oh man.
Because
So
you
me
were
and
in
my
New York before, right?
I was in New York, and then me and my wife lived in LA. So my wife actually spent 8 years in New York, and I spent 8 years in LA. We met in the middle of the country. I was like, "You're coming to LA with me." So we moved there in 2019. COVID hit, and the city just shut down, and it was not the LA I wanted to introduce my wife to, and eventually kind of settle in. So we ended up buying a house in Palm Springs, actually. Lived there for about 3 years, and we had a little boy, little brand brand new boy. And I don't know if you've ever been to Palm Springs, but it's an amazing vacation town. It is not somewhere where you should be raising a kid. There's just no infrastructure. There's no other kids. There's no any of that. But we love the desert. We loved living there. We loved the weather. We loved the architecture, a lot of what the desert had to offer. So instead of moving back to LA, I said, "Hey, there's a lot of people talking about Vegas. Let's take a couple of trips over there and see what's going on." It is awesome here right now. You have a whole influx of optimistic folks with a lot of money looking to do a lot of cool things. You have sports teams. It feels like there's a new sports team here every week. You have a bunch of people from California moving their businesses, investing in new things. It's a very optimistic state right now, and that's what I thrive off that energy. I thrive off of people doing new creative things. I thrive off of people just saying, "Hey, whatever you want to do, go and do it, and we'll support you," right? And unfortunately, I feel like California kind of lost a little bit of that as of late. It's not the Arnold Schwarzenegger California I remember, which was my favorite version. Yeah. And hey, look, the zero income tax definitely doesn't hurt matters too.
If I was on the West Coast, I would have to follow your footsteps and totally agree with you there. And you're just seeing continuation of trends of migration of California companies going to Arizona and Nevada, but especially Nevada lately. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
it's happening all the time. Unfortunately, that means things like properties or real estate goes up a little bit. But these are growing pains, and I rather have some growing pains and be optimistic about the future than the inverse of that, which is I'm paying a ton of money for a retracting economy. And that's just it's unfortunately kind of how it feels a little bit in California right now.
very interesting. How often are you in Florida? Because that seemed like the lead gen world, affiliate world. That's like the hub, right?
I just was there for Lead Gen World. I feel like it's a Miami and Vegas world right now, right?
It
So I'm
is.
either here, which is great for me because I live here, or I'm in Miami. So I'm in Miami quite a lot, or Southern Florida, I should say, quite a lot these days.
You ever thought about relocating your company there when you were thinking
So
about the whole strategy?
it's fun. It's funny you brought that up because I did want to actually go to Florida. But it's just a little too far from friends and family. And my wife, she's got a thing with humidity. She doesn't quite like it. She likes her hair nice, and
But you're in Vegas. But you're
there's
in
no
Vegas.
humidity here. No humidity. Just dry, hot heat.
That's true. It gets pretty hot in Vegas.
It does. It does. But hey, look, man, I will say though, the times I'm in Florida and it's 95 and like 95% humidity, that is probably the worst weather in the world. Uh, no pun intended, but I'd rather always take 120 and dry over 95 and humid.
All right. Well, you guys are a young, fun company right now, and I know quite a few folks use you guys. I'm looking forward to our next episode because so much going to change in 2025. And I know you guys
Agree.
got a lot of great planned growth coming up. So I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Me
And
too.
I'm sure you and I are going to chat a lot leading up to it. And we're probably going to run into each other in a couple of events. So, Matthew, thank you very much for coming on the show. Make sure you guys go follow him on LinkedIn and reach out to him and connect with him. So,
Thanks, Jeff. Really
thank
appreciate
you
it.
again.